Hey guys.
Happy Sunday. So this has actually been a really productive week.
Yeah.
after like 4 weeks of insane amounts of rain, we finally got 4 days in a row of dry, nice weather to be out working in the yard.
Yeah, no wind today. It has been really gusty for the last 2 days.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say no wind today. It's still kind of windy today, but
well, it's normal gusty.
But we were having like 60-mile-an-hour winds the last couple days. Yeah, so we had 4 nice days, then 2 days of like stay in the house weather. So we got out today and got some more stuff done. I'm really excited to show you the progress we've made in the yard this week, because I feel like we're finally hitting a turning point with the yard. So after 2 years of removing invasives, okay, we're still removing invasives, but we're now like starting to see the benefit of all that work. Like, it's not just something you're doing knowing that it's the right direction, that you can actually see it now. So I'm excited to show you some progress that we made this week. We did have a bit of a garden setback, a little, I can't even believe it, but we'll show you that as well. And then still working on processing all of the apples, still picking apples, still baking all kinds of things.
Yeah, we're coming to an end of that though.
Do you think? I don't know. I feel like I probably have 2 more weeks in the kitchen of apple prep. Yeah, so it's a tiny little tree, but it has really brought it this year. So with that in mind, I developed a new apple bread recipe this week. It's very good. That's what we've been having for breakfast this week. And I'm going to share that snack. Basically, I made it for breakfast, and the loaf disappears a lot faster than I anticipated. I don't know how that's happening.
I don't know who's eating it.
No. So anyway, we'll show you that recipe. It is something you can make in your bread machine or in the oven. So either or. This week we've been doing it in the bread machine just so that we could be outside every minute possible. But I think that's pretty much what we got to show them this week. So you ready to show them our garden work?
Let's do it.
All right. All right, so this has definitely been a week of both forward and backward progress in the garden. So let's start with the backward progress. Now, we had 2 days of very strong winds, and as a result, we lost another tree. As you can see, it just came out of the ground, root ball and all. Now, this one was not a surprise for us. It already had a bit of a lean. We had discussed this tree and our plans to take it down maybe a week ago. So it was already on our list. It decided to do the job for us. And if we're keeping track, I believe this is tree number 55. So yeah, between the storms and invasive removal projects and everything else, this will be the 55th tree that we will have cut up. So, yeah, I mean, it's not terrible that it came down, but we will need to deal with it sooner than later now, because it's obviously going to be interfering with mowing here in the immediate future. All right, so now that we've seen the setback for the week, let's take a look at some of our progress for the week. All right, so just to give you perspective of where we are right now. We're here at the front of the house, and this is the bed that runs along the edge of the property line. Now, when we moved here, this barn in front of us here, which is our neighbor's, the backside of it was completely covered in ivy all the way up to the roof, and was actually going into their barn. So I removed all of that ivy, and then I still had a ton of invasives to deal with in these beds. So all the usual players. In addition to the ivy, we had our blackberries and our stinging nettle. Nothing new there. But we also had a ton of perennials that spread by rhizome. So if you do a lot of gardening, you'll know that anything that spreads by rhizome really has invasive tendencies. So even though these are things that somebody has planted over the years, they were not things that we wanted to keep in the garden bed. So we did a complete reset. I spent a bunch of time out here this week pulling stuff, and I've got this bed completely bare now. So the plan has always been that we were going to plant a row of hydrangeas here. So that's what this is actually in front of us. This is one hydrangea that we planted the first year we were here. Now, I think we had originally ordered and planted 5. These are Annabelle hydrangeas, so they'll be white. But I'm not going to lie, the first year I ordered them bare root to save money. And we were so busy that when they came, they sat and sat and sat and sat before I got around to planting them with Mr. Huff. So only one of them survived that, totally on me, not anything to do with the nursery. So we will have to buy some new ones to fill this bed out. But I'm not normally a fan of using landscape fabric to keep weeds out, but I think we're actually going to do that this time, because when you have stuff with rhizomes, it is nearly impossible to get all of the rhizomes out. So even though I've picked and picked and picked out of the bed, I'm already, since it's rained yesterday, I'm already seeing more sitting here on the surface that were not visible before. So these are just going to keep coming back, and I'm going to go ahead and cover this bed with landscape fabric, and then we will just cut slits for the hydrangeas. So that'll take this bed off of our maintenance list. And once these hydrangeas have a chance to fill in, this should look amazing. All right, so that's what I've been working on this week. Let me show you what I'm going to be working on today. So same bed, here is the well house. We have 2 wells on the property. This is the one out in the front courtyard. Now, Mr. Huff has actually started working on removing some of the blackberries already, because the entire inside of the well was overwhelmed with blackberries. I'll show you. So I'm going to try not to drop you in. We've got this well here. You can see we actually have ivy growing inside of it, which is not at all good for the stonework. And in fact, check out these roots for the ivy that's growing on the top of the well house. So we definitely do not want any further damage than what's already been caused with the roots from the ivy. So I want to get all of this off of here, including all of the moss that's growing on it, because moss is going to hold in moisture, which again is not going to be good for the mortar. We do not want to have the roof of this collapsing, and there's really no way for us to assess the condition of the stonework without having it cleared off so that we can just keep an eye on it. So all of this stuff at the top needs to go. We're looking at blackberries, which is crazy. You've got blackberries literally growing on the top of the roof here. And then you'll see there's a lot of ferns here on the side, which are pretty, but I think this is basically fern moss that has grown into ferns. And again, all of this is stuff holding moisture. So you can see we have a big just bed of roots and limbs and things. So this all needs to come off so we can see what we need to do now with the mortar and just be able to keep an eye on it in the future. So figured I would take you along today while we work on this. And I'm really excited about this project because obviously we've been here for 2 years. This is how it's looked the whole time. So we have never seen what this well house looks like bare. I think this is going to be an exciting project for today. All right, so I think the sun's about to set for the day, so we're going to pause our work so we can show you what we got done today. So let's start up in the orchard. Mr. Huff has been working to get all 4 of the palm trees pruned up. This is the first time we tackled that project, and I think they're looking a lot neater. And it's also going to be a whole lot easier to mow around them, and it will make it easier for me to spot any ivy that we need to pull in that area. Because you may remember earlier this year, there was ivy growing from the base all the way to the very top. It was a major effort to get it off. So it'll make maintenance easier. And also, I have to say, the fact that we're focused on pruning these makes me feel like we're making significant progress, because that is a far cry from worrying about all the ivy. So we're going to mark that a success. Now, let me pop over and show you the well before the sun sets. So we aren't done clearing off the well, but I think we made significant progress today. Really, really nice to have the majority of the plant material off at the top of the dome, and to finally be able to see all of the stone and assess what needs to be done to keep it shored up and in good condition. So we do have some spots that would benefit from having a stone put back. So we'll probably dig through our stone pile in the back and find some pieces to stick in there. And then this will go on our repointing list at some point, because we definitely don't want to lose this, because it's a very cool structure. You can see we still have some more to clear on the tippy top. Still working on getting all of the extra soil off, so I've got more work to do with that. We did get a lot of the stuff out of the inside of the well. I think most, if not all, of the blackberries are out now, and still a bit of ivy to go. And you can see still some stuff on the ceiling. So I'm really glad we got this done, because now I won't be wondering about the condition, because we can actually see what we're dealing with. Now, one cool thing, check this out. So we'll do probably some pressure washing next week. There's a little step here to the well, and then it has this stone or concrete area around it here, and then another little step up, and the path kind of continues around the side of the well. So all of that was hidden under grass before today. So I think that's pretty cool. And I have to say, I think the well looks a lot more interesting with all the plants off of it. So I've already been enjoying the view from the house and from the terrace. Just a really cool structure. So, not a bad day of gardening when you can reveal something like that without spending any money at all. Okay, so you may have seen that we had our fire pit going in last week's video. Now that came with us from the US. We just pulled it out of the barn last week for the first time, and we're ready to really put it to some good use. So this is one of 2 piles on the property of limbs resulting from all of that tree work. So anytime, any evening that we have good weather, this fall or winter, we're going to be out with the fire pit on the back terrace, working on burning through some of this material. So I think we've got a lot of campfire meals in our future, but we're going to see what we can do this fall and winter to get this pile moving out of here finally. So right now it seems like we're able to burn through about 2 wheelbarrow loads a night. So bit by bit, I think we're actually going to get this out of here. So we'll see. Okay, so it has been a really good year for apples. We are still picking apples off of our one tiny tree, despite the fact that we've already made so many apple things. So this week I set out to develop a new recipe for apple bread. And this is a recipe that you can either make in the bread machine or in the oven, so whichever way you prefer. Now I've got all of the ingredients lined up here so that I can show you how to make this. And before I run through all of the ingredients, I thought I would point out how many of them are things that we make ourselves. Because I think there's kind of a conception that when you cook from scratch, this means every time you make something, you have to make all of the things, which is not really the case. So it's more like you're making a whole bunch of applesauce at some point and then having that tucked in the freezer so that when you want to bake with applesauce, it's just there and you're using yours instead of the store-bought. So we have our applesauce, apples from our tree. We have our own vanilla, which is just a super simple thing to make and saves quite a bit of money. And then we're also going to be using our own apple pie spice. So again, these are all things we do from scratch, but that doesn't mean that every time I cook, I have to go make these things to get started. I'm making these in big enough amounts that we have them for a long time. So cooking from scratch is really about just kind of rotating through all the things you make so that you keep your stores in your pantry and freezer and so forth. All right, so let's run through all of the ingredients for this, and then I'll show you how quickly this comes together. So as I mentioned, we have applesauce. This is unsweetened because we're not using this to add the sweetness to the recipe. We've got some beaten eggs, our chopped apples. We peeled them, but you could certainly leave the peels on if you wanted to keep the vitamins. We've got our vanilla, some all-purpose flour, brown sugar, and then we've got the apple pie spice, baking powder, a little bit of baking soda, and a small amount of salt. So I'm not going to get into the quantities. I'm going to link this recipe so that you can print it out and get all of the ingredient amounts, and that'll just save you from having to worry about that now. All right, and this is today we're going to make it in the bread machine, and this is the bread machine that Mr. Huff fixed for me a little while ago. If you remember, he put in new belts, and it works fantastically. So let's put all the ingredients in, and I'll show you how easy this is. All right, so generally with a bread machine, you're going to start with your wet ingredients first, just so that you've got the wet stuff at the bottom of the pan, and that ensures that everything is going to mix in well so that you're not going to have bits of flour or other dry ingredients that aren't incorporating with the bread. All right, so we'll start with the applesauce. I'm going to get every bit of that out. And this applesauce is taking the place of oil or butter in the recipe. So it's less fat, and it's also going to add some apple flavor as well as a lot of moisture. So this is a great ingredient to include in breads, and you can actually substitute applesauce in pretty much any bread recipe that's calling for oil or butter. You can use it measure for measure. All right, so there is our applesauce. We're going to add the eggs next. Let me get my spatula back because we want to make sure we get every bit of our measured ingredients. We paid for them or we made them, and we want to use every bit. Okay, so there's that. Okay, we're going to be treating the apples like a wet ingredient in this sense. So we're just going to distribute those evenly throughout the pan. Now we cut those fresh today, but if this is a recipe that you want to make throughout the year and you're processing a lot of apples right now, you can certainly freeze chopped apples this is 2 cups, so you can freeze this in 2 cup measures and then just pull that bag out throughout the year whenever you want to make this recipe. All right, next comes some of our homemade vanilla. And any of these ingredients that I'm making myself, I can link to those if you're interested in trying those as well. So I can link the apple pie spice and the vanilla sugar and the applesauce. All right, now we're on to the dry ingredients. So we've got our all-purpose flour, spread that out a little bit. Okay, and then we've got our brown sugar. So that's going to add some sweetness as well as some flavor to this recipe. And then we've got our apple pie spice, baking powder. So this is a quick bread. It is unyeasted, and we're using a combination of baking powder and baking soda to leaven the bread. Okay, and then here is our baking soda. And then finally, a small amount of salt. All right, so we're just going to get this started in the machine, and then we will come back when it's done, and I'll show you how amazingly this turns out. All right, here we go. All right, so while Mr. Huff and I have been out in the yard making a bunch of progress, the bread machine has been busy at work as well. So check out this apple bread loaf. I love how well the apples evenly distribute throughout the bread. So it looks great. Let me slice it and show you just how moist this is, because this is a great bread. All right, so it has got a great, see all that fruit distributed all throughout it. We'll cut some slices, and it smells amazing. So it's going to make your house smell wonderful while it's baking, but even just slicing it now, it smells so, so good. So I think this will be our breakfast for the next few days. Can't complain about that. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a recipe that you can make in the bread maker or in the oven. I have included instructions for both, and I will put a link to this recipe in the description below the video if you'd like to test it out on your family.